let's just continue on and I'll show you how to finish this off a little better yet. So we want to add some shadows. And I add my shadows with colored pencils. Now there's a lot of different colored pencils out there. My favorite brand is a brand they call Prismacolor. And you can buy those at most office stores, art stores. Well, I think even Walmart carries them. I'm not sure about Target. They are a little more expensive. If you can afford them, get Prismacolors. They're wonderful colored pencils. If you can't, get you some, let's see. Get you just some of these colored pencils. And you buy these at most of them. These are the Crayola brand. And look at all these pictures. I think this, all these colors, I think this cost me $5 or $6. And if you can't get these are pretty good pencils for the price. Now, I'm not even going to name colors because every one of these different kinds of colored pencils have their own naming system. So I'm just going to tell you what to look for when you look for a color. Let's work on this center yellow here first. I have actually 4 colors out, and I'll explain why I chose them as we go. What I want to do is I want to shadow a little bit in this center petal. And I want a color just a little bit darker than the yellow. And I chose an orange. And you'll have lots of choices for orange. You don't want anything that will overpower, and you don't want anything too light. You'll have to test it on a piece of paper to see how well it covers. But you want it to come in here and just add a little bit of shadow in the middle of your flower. Just like that. And it really is amazing how different this little bit of shadowing can make your flower look. Can you see already how much more interesting this one looks than this one without it? Okay, there's my shadows in the center of the flower. Now I want to add a little bit of shadowing at this little tip. And for these, I'm just going to kind of use a little circular motion. Just add a little bit of color here on the ends of the inner petals. This adds a little interest and texture to your work. All right, there, that looks so much better. Okay, now we need to shadow the red. Now getting this color is a little more difficult, so I'm going to give you a name here if it's still. If you're working with Prismacolor, this is called Rouge Toscan. I may not be saying that right. R-O-U-G-E and then Toscan, T-O-S-C-A-N. It's a cross between a real dark red and a brown. If you have the other colored pencils, you may have to use a brown, kind of like a mahogany. And I'm going to check here real quick to see if you're using Crayolas, what might be a good one to use. Perhaps this. It's not as red colored, but it is, well, it just says it's brown. So I would say you might try that. See if there's anything else in here that looks like it might work. And that's the closest one to it. So you'll have to go for a brown if you don't have a large set. Possibly one called mahogany. There is a mahogany. I would try these on scrap pieces of paper if you have anything except Prisma, and see what ones look good. You can tell I really like this color. I use it a lot with red. I use my colored pencils hard. So what we want to do is to come in the same place where we shadowed the yellow, is to add it on the red. It just gives it a good depth. Because real flowers will have shadows. And especially they're shadowed towards their centers. Now, I like to keep my colored pencil sharp when I'm working with it. So you're going to hear a loud noise here. I sharpened it again. They just work better when they're nice and sharp. One word about colored pencils. They're very delicate. There's a piece of your, wow, what your colored pencil. Sometimes it's wax. Sometimes it's other things that they make this out of. And the center of your pencil is very breakable. You don't want to drop them. Don't drop them on the floor. Don't throw them around. Treat them kind of like eggshells. Now, if you do drop them, don't cry. What's going to happen is they'll be harder to sharpen because they'll break inside. And as you sharpen, this will pull out and fall out. And it can be really frustrating. So your colored pencils will last you a lot longer and work a lot better if you don't drop them. Of course, sometimes the more you think about don't drop, don't drop, don't drop, that's when you drop them. But just try to take care of them as well as you can. Now again, we want to do a little bit of circular motion right here on the ends of these leaves. Just like we did with the marker. That works well with colored pencils. So remember that when you're doing colored pencil work and you want to make a smoother background. Now colored pencils will never look quite as smooth as your markers do if you smooth your markers. That's just the nature of colored pencils. There are some things you can do to smooth them out more, and we'll have that in another lesson. But for these pictures, you don't need to. What we're doing right now works just fine. See how much more life this gives to your flower? There we have the red shaded now. See how much nicer that looks? Now we just, actually, we need to shade our stem and our leaves. We're just about done. Okay, now, if I use Prismacolor, I use one that's just called dark green. And I think there's one just about like it in your Crayola brand. It is called, it's hard to read these in this light, pine green. But there's several different greens in here, so you're sure to find a green that will work. Just find you a darker green. And what we want to do is shade, just like kind of with the flowers, the bottom parts of our leaves. We'll do that first. We're going to do shade more than one spot on these leaves, but let's just do the bottom part right now. You notice this kind of sets it off from the stem now, so it doesn't look so much like it's part of the stem. I really like this lighter green so much better for this plant. Sometimes the dark green is what we want, but in this one I love the lighter green. And if you can't find a marker the color you want, you can use colored pencils for your first layer. Just be sure you do them nice and smooth and do your circular motion to make them that way. But I really love the combination of marker and colored pencils. Okay, we did the base. Now, let's go along, and we want to shade along the top of each one of our vein lines. Kind of like that. Softly as you can. Now mine's coming off a little harsh. I'm not sure why it's doing that today. Let's try to soften it up. Maybe if I put less pressure on there, it will work. And then right along the middle vein, right up to the tip of your leaf. And I think on mine, I'm actually going to outline the whole thing a little bit in this dark. There we go. I'm not real happy. I can see maybe I'm hurrying a little bit too much now. I can feel this has taken a long time. But that's okay. You can always take several days to do this picture if you want. Okay. So I'm going to do that now on every leaf. We'll have another step yet for these leaves. It's going to finish them off really nicely. And it's a very easy step. But I'll show you that in a minute. I'm going to do it this way on this leaf. And you may find you want to do it a different way too. Around the edges and then over each line. Kind of at the top of the line. Okay. And notice I also do a little bit of shadowing wherever anything is like in front of it to cast a shadow. We make that a little darker. All of this takes time. You think you're about done and then you have all these other layers to put on. But again, if we enjoy doing artwork, we don't mind taking the time to make it as beautiful as we can. Now we do need to do a little shading on this stem. So we're going to shade up here where the flower attaches. Just a little bit of shading here. Because the flower petals will be casting some shadow. Just like that. Let's do it on this one too. Oh, but we're so close now. Now, on one side, I'll just pick this one right now. I want to do some darker shading on one side of the stem. And on this, I am doing kind of long lines rather than the circles. I'm going to kind of do a little curve down here where it joins in, and I need to do a dark side here. It needs to be, if this is left side here, it needs to be left side here, or if it's right side, they both need to be the same. And let's just fill in a little bit down here. There we go. And then that's shaded. Okay, now we need to do something we call highlights. We have, in a picture, we have darker areas of your color, and then we have brighter areas, like where the sun's hitting or a light's hitting. It makes it lighter. And I like to highlight my leaves with a little bit of bright yellow. Now this is a canary yellow in Prismacolor, and you have two nice bright yellows here in your, three of them. So you definitely have a yellow you can use in Crayola. There's just a plain old yellow, this golden yellow, and well, this is from another set, and there's another yellow. So no problem with your Crayolas. Be sure they're nice and sharp, and where it's not been shadowed, we want to make just a little bit of yellow highlight. And now this is very subtle. It doesn't show up a lot. Let me finish this side and then I'll show you. But it's just enough to make the leaf look more vibrant. You see how this is a little lighter in these little areas than it is on this side? And we want to do that in all this. We just do a little, it's basically a little scribble, just to add some highlights. Now you don't always only do this on leaves. You do it to a lot of your artwork. You decide what areas you'd like to highlight, and you may use a white or a very light variation of the color you're highlighting. But I have found that I really like the way yellow works on leaves. It makes it look just so natural and finished. And it doesn't take very long to do this step. But it's worth it with the way your picture looks. Got this side to do. You see already though, I don't know if you can tell on camera how much more vibrant these look than these do. You may have to just trust me that's true, because it may be too subtle to be picked up on the camera. And you may want to practice these coloring techniques on a practice piece of paper before you actually do it on your project. But once you've done it, you'll feel very safe in using it on your project. I think we all live with the fear, if we're working on a picture and we really like what we've done, of doing something really stupid and ruining it. So it is wise to be cautious and try things out on a scrap piece of paper. Now, we had a dark side to our stem. On the other side, we want to add a little bit of this yellow. Just like that. You don't have to be real picky about it. Just add some of that. Now, I see a little bit of my dark green. I want to add a little bit more here. That little spot where it meets is probably a little darker. There we go. Okay, we are pretty much done. Now, I'm going to show you how to use chalk backgrounds. But if you don't want to do a background, go ahead and finish this center if you want to put something on there. But we need to do our chalk background before we do it if we're using chalks, because the glitter that I use, it takes a while to dry. I like to use stickles. There's also glue, glitter glue that you can buy in your Walmarts and things that will work. So I have been sitting here thinking this has been a very long video, so I'm thinking this may be broke up into 3 or 4 parts. And then you can work a little while each day, a little bit easier than trying to do this whole video. But let's get our chalking done. Now, you can actually, so far, I haven't found a kind of chalk that won't work. Some's easier to use than others. And I have some different kinds here. I guess I misplaced it. If you've been into scrapbooking, or some of the family members have, they may have these that are called blending chalks, and they're wonderful. But you know, you can also use these, which you are very likely to have around if you have kids or are a kid. Sidewalk chalks. They work too. Now, they're a little harder to use, and these chalks are harder feeling. So you just have to work a little harder to get it done. But I really like these. If you have these, I don't see these anymore. And I have another set currently that is almost like that, but I don't have them here with me right now. I must have them in the other room, but that's okay. Just about any kind of chalk will work, and I'll show you on both. The one thing about sidewalk chalks is you can buy sets. In fact, there's a bigger set than this that has, scads and scads of colors in them. I have used the blue before. Here's a blue. how big that is. And well, if you've used sidewalk chalk. And you use it about the same way as you do these chalks. Now what I like to do with these is you just rub in it. This is a piece of cotton cosmetic pads. And then you just lightly scrub it onto your picture. Look at that, how wonderful that is. Now, if you're worried about it getting on your drawing, and that is definitely a possibility, you do try to not go over your drawing, but it usually won't stick as long as there's colored pencil or marker here. It kind of repels it. Remembering that if you have decided to leave some of your flower parts white, you'll want to use the white colored pencil to go over it so that when you chalk, it won't turn it colors. Now, I use this one. If you are going to use sidewalk chalk, you just have to rub harder. And this is a little bit different color. But you see, it works too. Look at that. It doesn't come off of the chalk itself as easy. But as long as you have patience and just keep working at it, you can use sidewalk chalk. And look at all those neat colors. And this is one of the smaller boxes. I saw one, these twice this size with twice the colors. And I almost bought that because, oh, there's just some beautiful colors in there. But we'll stick with the blue here, this set right here, because I have it open and I'm used to using this. And I have another set that's really nice. I can't find it. I'll have to show it to you in a later video. Now, I like to kind of put a light yellow on these anyway, right around my flower. It kind of sets it apart from the darker color. So I like to put some yellow chalk right around my flower. Now, can you see? I'm just going to gently work it in here on the white. I'm not going over my green, but I'm sure it's touching the edges. And as long as I have my colored pencil there, I don't have to worry. It's not going to discolor what I already did. Now, if you watch some videos about this, and they have them up, they always say, oh no, you have to spray something on that and go to all this work to keep it from touching your original artwork. And maybe that's true if you're using watercolor. I don't know. But if you're using colored pencil, and this technique, you don't have to worry about it. And I haven't even had trouble with them rubbing off on something that they're close to. Say you put it in your scrapbook or something. But I do use page protectors if I put it in a scrapbook or something. And if you're worried about it, you can spray this with a can of hairspray. Well, don't use the whole can. But spray it with a couple layers of hairspray, and this chalk will not rub off. And it will protect your picture somewhat. You can buy some expensive things called fixative to do that, but hairspray is the same thing, and you probably have that around the house somewhere. See how fast this goes on? And how it really, really helps to finish the picture off. Okay, we're going to have our yellow in. You can rub it and rub it and rub it till it gets as smooth as you like it. And I do kind of go over these edges a little bit, especially like here, because the yellow really isn't going to affect the red very much. Be a little careful. You notice I did it. If your fingers get into the chalk dust and then you hold your picture, you're liable to get messy things along the edge, and that's very easy to do. You might get some colors there that you don't like. Then I like to put my blue in, and you kind of fade it in together. Get a new little cosmetic pad here and work your blue in. Now, there must have been a little bit of dampness there. Maybe I spit when I talk. And when you come to the edge of the yellow, go ahead and blend it in. If you're super energetic, you can do your backgrounds with your markers or your colored pencils. But boy, most of us don't have that kind of patience. It takes forever. And it uses, especially with markers, it uses them up very quickly. Most of us don't have an endless supply of money for our markers. Now that little spot definitely annoys me, and I'm not sure there's much I can do about it. Most of us don't sit here talking while we do our artwork and get any liquids on it. Or you wouldn't want to drink or eat while you were doing this either. I could try an eraser, but I doubt if that'll work. Well, you know, it might have. Let's see if now we can blend in. Well, that helped a lot. It's still not perfect. So that's kind of dark, which means I might want to darken the area around that to match it. And there we go. It's not too bad. You can tell that it helped it anyway. I'm not sure. I don't know about you, but to me it's very hard to get through a picture and not have something happen somewhere that we're not real happy with. So we have to kind of learn to fix them, hide them, or just put up with them. It just happens. It's life. Okay, there's our background. Now, this one I'm doing on a different type of paper. This was done on mixed media paper. This was done on copy paper, the kind that comes out of your printer. And so you can work on that kind of paper. In fact, it's a little bit smoother looking. And I only have one more thing now to do, except for writing my name on it, is to do my little flower centers. Now for glitter glue, I'll be honest, I love the brand Stickles. It is the best glitter glue that I have found, but you can't buy that at, like, say, your Walmarts or your Targets or your office stores. You would have to go to a craft store or order them online. But they are the most precise. You can put little dots of glitter out with these. Now you can get glitter glue at your other stores, but I have found that they're a little more fluid, and so sometimes they kind of spread out a little more, and it's a little harder to control them. But if you're careful, you can use them, but just practice on a different piece of paper. But you can see how tiny the point is on this Stickles brand. It is so tiny. I don't know if I can get where you can see that point. That it comes out in nice, very small dots. And so I'm going to dot, this is a kind of a green color I'm going to dot here, but there's all kinds of colors of these in all of the brands. So it pays to have several different brands around, and you can use, you know, if it's a bigger picture where you don't have to try to do tiny little spots, you can use some of the cheaper ones. Now this will take all night to dry probably. So that's why I wait till the very last thing to put any glitter on my picture, because this will need to sit here now and dry. There's one more thing you need to do, even though you're done, except for signing your name. Pick up all of your craft supplies and put them up. And it's always a good idea, take your colored pencils now, sharpen them before you put them up. cap all your pens, sharpen all your pencils, put your chalk up, put your pens on, be sure your Sharpies are nice and capped, and clean up your area every time you do an art project. And then it will be all clean and ready to go for your next picture. So thank you for being with me. This was a long project, and several of our projects coming up will probably be that long. And I think I'm going to try dividing these up into maybe 3 videos. That might make it easier for us. We'll see how that works. So thank you, and I'll see you on our next video. Enjoy. Hi, just a real quick update here. I have finished my picture and then went on to do a couple more things with it, which I thought I'd show you to give you some ideas on what you can do with yours. Here's one I did in totally different colors. I did a really dark pink that is in the Sharpies and this aqua color. Both were Sharpies. And I did 2 flowers down here instead of 1, and I made them smaller than our larger one in the top. And then I used metallic, silver metallic Sharpie. Now this is totally different to use than your regular Sharpie. It's more like using paint. But it's really fun. And then I did something I hardly ever do, is I did my background with my black Sharpie using our circular method. And it really didn't take me near as long as I thought it would. And I thought this came out really cute. So why don't you try some other things now that you've learned how to draw these flowers? Make them different sizes, different colors, use different materials, and you know, it's really surprising what you can come up with. Here's the one that we made earlier. You've seen that. And I did one more thing with that very first one I mentioned way back. Let me take it out of here. That I was going to use it with a scrapbook page, which is what I did. I cut it out, glued it on this pretty green scrapbooking paper, and put a picture of my grandma there, layered on top of a little paper doily. These paper doilies, you can find them usually at Walmart, Target, several stores like that, and your craft stores. But if you don't find them in the craft section, go look in the cake baking section. And that's where you'll usually find these. And I know that's where you find them at Walmart. And you can get all kinds of colors. I like to get white because I could paint that if I wanted to. And here is 3 little acrylic plastic dots to kind of balance out my picture. So this is something else you can do. Now I'll grant you that it's a little tricky cutting out these petals and not making mistakes. But if you have some patience, it can come out looking pretty neat. So I would just thought I would give you these other ideas, and I would encourage you to keep drawing these flowers. Every time you do it, it will get a little easier, and you'll start getting other ideas. And if you change colors and size of flowers and the position of them, and see I did the leaves a little different here as far as they weren't right across from each other, your picture will look different, but you'll be using the same skills. So go have fun with this. Bye-bye. We'll see you later.